This is Relay Talk with your host DKEN, and today we're gonna go over the first couple games of round three. They did happen over the course of last week. Like I said, there are 12 games technically in round three, but I learned that there's an extra four loser bracket games that are technically counted as round three. So I'll have a third episode dedicated to those. Because today we're gonna do 6 games. Out of the 12 ones that I had planned originally. So without any further ado, let's just jump right into this thing. Now, first up, we have Mate Gang versus Fine Clap, and Mate Gang wins over Fine Clap in probably the worst game of all time. This did set a new record for the slowest relay win, so you guys are in for a treat. 1.14 wasn't really that crazy, as it turns out. I think this was the first round, basically, where the two runners in 1.14 went to different fortresses. Daffraid ended up going to the fortress with a double spawner, but didn't even use it. And both runners ended up having to sleep really late into the night. And Daffraid only really started sleeping at 13 minutes, which is it's a pace lock for sure. You end up having to start your trading at 15, maybe leave your village at 17. That's not really the best in 1.14 specifically. Ficus getting the faster sleep time is able to leave the village at 16:30 roughly, and Daffraid ends up leaving a whole 3 minutes later after that. And Ficus, I believe this is just about the cleanest run in this entire match, getting a 26-minute time. That's pretty good for this version. And he guesses just basically as Daffraid enters. Now, in 1.7, we did have a troll as normal, but this was a little bit unintentional. There was a little 1x1 block of an end portal at spawn. Presumably, the C tester did not remember to break the block after testing out the end. Luckily, the runners did not use it because you are not allowed to. That is not supposed to happen. Obviously, it's a simple mistake. It's not a huge deal, but you technically could have and gotten yourself in a little bit of trouble. Anyway, FedEx immediately going for the second day nether, doing DMT as well. I remember last round, FedEx did go for second day nether. I think he probably knows that he can't pull it off. I don't really know how much practice he's done behind the scenes to really get a feel for his pace and what he can do, but this is a thing we've seen from FedEx before, and it does end up costing him some pace. Nova is faster to the tower build, but screws up the ladder placements, which is really heartbreaking because that forces him to settle for 7 pearls on the first night. So all that time, trying to fix the tower and everything, getting scuffed drops, get some 7 pearls, and that is not what you want to see. And FedEx, on the other hand, does enter the nether on the second day with the basically 13 pearls. That's all you need, really. It's a little bit on the riskier side because 2 breaks and you're already looking for eyes pre-generated in the portal, but it's not too big. And this is where the crazy happens. Nova is in the portal room at around 23 minutes. Obviously, is 6 eyes short because leaving on 7 is not really going to do you any good. Obviously, Nova wasn't expecting to make it, and 5 eyes are basically insane. They're 1 in 260 something. That's less than 1% chance of getting it. But it's just a good idea to find where the portal room is, where the stronghold is, just so. You might as well do something with that daylight time. And I guess FedEx was no. And FedEx, catches up. And yeah, FedEx has to go nav the stronghold, not hitting the portal room on the dig down. And his nav is really terrible. It takes this is what happened. So in the time that FedEx had to go and nav the stronghold, Nova, who was 6 eyes short, had to go back to the tower, drop 6 times, 6 cycles, get 7 more pearls, go back to the stronghold, dig all the way down, nav again for the portal room, and just to remember only to remember that he has no wool for beds, so he has to go dig all the way back up, go find some sheep, shear them, run back to the stronghold again, dig down a second time, and enter the end, all before FedEx finds this thing once. All of that happened. Literally, Nova ran a whole 1.7 run in the time it took for FedEx to find the portal room. And crazy thing is, Nova literally, he dies in the end to the dragon. And FedEx, who finally finds the portal room, he's one eye short as well. And so it's just a nightmare for these 1.7 players. Nova makes it back into the end, while FedEx like spends 7 minutes of night just trying to get one pearl. And Nova can't exactly finish out the end fight the second time. He like runs out of beds. The dragon is on half health, and it's just a nightmare. He has to die again, basically, and Nova ends up finishing with like a 1 hour, 3 minute run, and FedEx finishes 2 minutes later. So basically, the time difference for these two runners never really changed once 1.7 started, which is insane because, I mean, getting a 1 hour run is hard enough. Getting two players to get a 1 hour run, it doesn't happen a lot. Thankfully, we did get to see some nice play by Antu running 1.16. Even though he had around 2 minute disadvantage heading into 1.16, but Rain, unfortunately, dying to blazes literally twice in the same exact fashion both times. He gets hit off by the blaze, and then bed clutches, right? Because when you land on a bed, you take less amount of damage than you normally would. And then he dies anyway. Like, he dies like a couple seconds later, returns to his portal, only to have that happen a second time. He bed clutches, and then he dies again. And Antu just pulls ahead all the way. He finishes out with like a 14, low 14, something like that. Antu carrying getting to the win, and the final time was 1 hour, 46 seconds. No, I'm kidding. I read that wrong. 1 hour and 46 minutes. And 23 seconds. Guys, that is the new worst relay win. The previous was held by Fineclap. Funny enough, their opponents with 144.59. And, man, I don't really know what to say. I feel like, I'll say it, Making, I think, has a little bit of plot armor here. I don't think they've really ever had a convincing victory, but they always slip by barely to snag a win, like especially round 1 against Super Hot Fire. Lots of scuff there. Definitely in this game. I think in their previous game. Let's see here. Let's check the solo board. Make Gang in round 2. Yeah, they straight up lost. So not much to say there. This team reminds me of our team. 2 runners who are not good at the game, and then 1 runner like Antu and Max, who carries everyone with consistently good times. Anyway, next game, we have Team 1 losing to French Cocktail, an absolutely insane upset by French Cocktail. And let's just jump right into it. Starting 1.14, basically it's a smooth run. It is to be noted that neither runner breaks the workstations before entering the nether. Which does impact their trading split in the end, because if you want villagers to be unemployed, you have to wait until it's work hours. And ideally, you don't want to spend that time unemploying them on the second day when you want to be trading, right? So you should do that on the first day, which means breaking all the workstations pre-nether. But they don't do that. Anyway, both runners chilling with the blaze bed. No problems at all. Very nice. And it leads to a very quick nether for both. And it's basically smooth, except for the fact that Feinberg gets an overworld Enderman and he gets killed by it while he's blowing up the Dark Oak. It really only like loses him like 1 minute of time, but it's just a funny thing that happened. The fact that an incredibly rare occurrence ended up killing Feinberg. I mean, he had a shield and everything. He just, I guess, had a brain fart and didn't place down a boat to trap the thing. That's basically how you avoid those situations. Or like placing water. Like, that's even simpler. But yeah, as I said, the village trading was a nightmare to watch. It really wasn't that bad, but it was just one runner, I think it was Feinberg, who had his like villagers super spread out across the village, and which slows you down. And Philocreep doing a boatless single Fletcher, which, man, talk about two terrible trading setups. I don't even know which one is slower. I think Philocreep ended up leaving the village before Feinberg, but like wasted some random amount of time getting sheep. I don't even really know what happened. Anyway, Ocean Travel to Stronghold makes up for the terrible trading. Philocreep does lose like 4 minutes to the Stronghold Nav, but it's not a huge deal. And 1.16 starts, and this is basically the story of how Team 1 loses this game. MolyG has a really tough time. Interestingly enough, like the Bastion and the Fortress were mad close, and that's not actually why he died. MolyG was able to route that very nicely, but when it came to, going to the Stronghold and doing nether travel, he had a gold pickaxe. He was mining through the wall, and he gets hit by lava. This little like one block patch of lava that spawns out of nowhere and decides to kill you and destroy your run. He burns up in it, and it looked on the mainstream. It looked like all his items had burned, but they didn't, because he just no reset. He goes straight back to the nether and picks up all his stuff, and he's digging all over again. Almost gets the lava a second time, almost dies, and I mean he survives. Although it's interesting, when he survives, he returns to the Bastion. I don't think we ever got to learn why. They didn't mention it in the post-match interview, probably to get something from the Bastion again. But while he's pearling there, it hits the side of the Bastion and falls into lava, and he has to reset. But the weird thing is, on his second world, it had the same nether as the first world. And by that, I mean all the blocks that he had like placed manually were already there, which is super confusing. But anyway, he makes a third world, and in this third reset, he dies getting to the Bastion, trying to do some like fancy parkour and just getting hit off by Blaze. And unfortunately, it takes a long while before MolyG actually does finish his run. He did get a sick low perch clutch at the end, but he ended up finishing with a 31-minute time, which is just very painful to watch, for especially 1.16, which is the most consistent version by far in this tournament and fastest. Let's be real here. And yeah, Nixer is already doing tower at this point, and even with the troubled end fight, really bad damage beds, Team 1 just can't catch a break. There's really no time to even like think of a comeback that could possibly happen. If Nixer died, maybe, but Team 1 was just so far behind. And yeah, French Cocktail finishing out with a very impressive 109 combined. I didn't really expect that out of them, and this was probably their cleanest game yet. So good job to them. Very insane upset against the first seeded team in the entire tournament. And yeah, next we have two juggernauts, Fishermen winning over Adrift. This is the ideal relay match. When you hear a bunch of speedrunners that are very good at the game are going to compete in a huge tournament, this match right here is what you imagine playing out every single match. Obviously, that doesn't happen because we're all terrible at the game, but this match was insane. Very close throughout the entire game, basically. 1.14 was pretty consistent for both runners. Taffel, obviously a huge fan of the 1.14 zero cycle, tried to make some kind of attempt, I guess. I don't really understand zero cycle, and it seemed like he either couldn't do it or it wasn't the right tower setup or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, he was always one to pull out the cool tactics and whatever. And nothing really to say for 1.14. It's just your standard run. Now, the only time waste that ever happened between these two teams was the fact that Maljack, unfortunately, is hit off during the Blaze fight, and he dies to fall damage. And by this time, I think Crooks was for 1.16 on the Fisherman. He was already like decently, maybe a whole minute ahead, just because his routing is just insane. I remember like watching his village routing, and it seemed like he was running SSG. Like he wasted no time going through everything. the dude's just insane. He's the best 1.16 runner in the tournament right now. And even though Maljack is able to like recover his death, it ends up being a 20-minute run. In contrast to Crook's new tournament best with 11:16. Guys, Crooks has gotten the fastest 1.16 time twice in this tournament. So he broke his own record, basically, which is just insane. Sorry, I'll amend that. That is 11 minutes and 13 seconds. That is a new 1.16 best for this tournament. But yeah, coming down to 1.7, as long as Axeroth didn't mess up, it was a done deal for the Fisherman. And we did get to see some it's a joke, but very cool and futuristic tech. The Arctic Cannon by Axeroth, which basically what that is where you set up these 3 TNT, you set it off, and just before they explode, you throw a pearl right on top of them. And so when they explode, it just launches the pearl in the direction you throw it, and it can save you a lot of time traveling and probably a decent amount of food, considering it's 1.7. But it fails miserably, and it carries him like 10 blocks. But very cool effort anyway by Axeroth. I know Chaos was commentating. He went out of his mind. He loved it. Always cool to see something. I do remember Spinnaker for Adrift trying that out as well. But unfortunately, it was after the Adrift team had lost, because Axeroth, really great run by him. Basically no mistakes. Once he was given the lead over Spinnaker, I mean, he just maintained it, clean end fights, and it's like I said, it's the ideal relay match where both teams play really well, and one mistake just kind of gives the game away. And yeah, Adrift is moving into the losers bracket. Now next we have the Juice winning over the Hot Tourist. This is another upset I did not see coming anywhere. And for most of the matches watching it, it seemed like Hot Tourists were able to win this thing anyway. Starting 1.14, Micro Avenger takes like a quick reset after dying in a sub-temple cave, which is, I don't know. You can technically, obviously both runners had a cave under the temple, but you usually can hear some kind of cave noises or like zombie groaning when you're in the temple. In fact, I won't cover this match today, but in my match for round 3, I deliberately did not blow up the temple because I heard water running and I heard zombie noises, so I just looted the thing manually. And yes, you can't get the stone at the bottom, but you don't want to mess with those mobs anyway. The reset only cost him like 2 minutes. But who's the Juice 1.14 runner? Yeah, Schmalix. Getting an early lead. Nothing really too notable during like the Nether and the trading splits. But the two runners actually end up going to different strongholds because Micro Avenger uses this random plains village that when I ran the practice seed before watching the match, I didn't even notice it existed. And because of that, they go to 2 different strongholds. And Schmalix somehow only has like 12 pearls. But unfortunately, no, not unfortunately, fortunately, he has no breaks and it's a 0-eye. So cutting it very close, but Schmalix gets in. It's basically neck and neck into the end enter. And yeah, 2 very clean runs for 1.14. Nothing really to say. Kind of like last round that we just covered. And yeah, New, starting in 1.16, loses time, making his second portal, which is a cave spawn, when Ben just used the home portal and save time, not like forcing 20 Abi in the Bastion. And I think this is a theme that is recurring in Relay, where forcing 20 Abi it's not always the best play, because it depends on where your home portal is and how accessible it is. Not to mention, you don't really know what the obsidian drops will be ahead of time. And so, I mean, if you have a 10 obsidian, like, you should just be fine going back to the home portal. With the amount of pearls you get from these things, it's usually not too bad of a decision. But all that time is made up. New hits the I Spy while Ben doesn't, so you gets the lead back. And Nice Weiss is given like about a 2-minute advantage heading into pre 1.9. And something interesting that the commentators were talking about during this part of the match was the importance of a strong 1.7 runner versus a strong 1.16 runner, because there's really not a lot of places to lose or make time in 1.16, excluding just taking a death, because taking a death is every version obviously can do that, and that'll lose you time. And like if both runners run 1.16 decently, there's might be like a 2 or 1 minute time difference, while 1.7, like a 23-minute time and a 28-minute time are both technically good times, but that's a 5-minute gap. And so if you have a really strong 1.7 runner, that can do you a whole lot of good. And that's why I'm incredibly thankful that we have Max on our team, because that guy is an absolute beast. As for, the Hot Tourist, though, Microventure, sorry, not Microventure. They're twins, but I still have no excuse to mix them up. Nice Twice. I meant Nice Twice. He's a little bit of a shaky pre 1.9 player, not because he's like bad at it. It's just because he's not the most consistent. And we did get to see a lot of that in the round 2, where the Hot Tourists unfortunately lost due to Nice Twice having probably the worst end fight of all 1.7 so far. And wouldn't you believe it, that's actually how they lose this game as well. Nice Twice has a lot of, well, I guess both runners have a lot of towers in the end. And Nice Twice doesn't have a lot of arrows. And he has 2 back-to-back bad damage beds. And so, just like in the previous round, he has to, go up the towers, try to use the crystal damage. But in a terrible turn of events, he runs out of blocks to actually tower up these things. And so Alex, playing 1.7 for the juice, enters the end after Nice Twice, and by a considerable amount of time, but finishes the end fight first. And it's just insane because, it really turned out to be a very, very close and intense end fight. Nice Twice probably was 1 bet away from killing the dragon, but he just had no bends and very little blocks to, tower up to a pillar. And he even tried to use TNT to blow up Endstone, which worked horribly, I will admit. And yeah, Hot Tours taking an L here. They are out of the tournament. The Juice coming in very clutch. Like I said, I didn't pick them to win, but I'm very impressed. Good job, you guys. Next, we have the Tri-County Titanium Mothman versus Team Korea. This is, I don't know how these keep happening. This is another upset. Team Korea wins over this insanely stacked Mothman team. Yeah, in 1.14, an interesting thing that we saw this from Infume in his record-setting 1.7 run for this relay, getting a horse at the very start of the match. And while we see that in 1.7, in 1.14, it's the first time we've ever seen that. Unfortunately, Zidori gets caught in the middle of the blade spawner during a force spawn, and he just gets meleeed from every single direction and dies. And so Kuriway has a bit of a lead going into trading. Chooses Dark Oak over Sevillage. I'm not gonna harp on that, but I mean, if you're given Sevillage, you gotta use it, bud. The travel distance, you're already at the village, you're getting beds in the process of blowing up. I mean, come on now. It's not a huge deal. And interestingly, Zidori uses a mix of both. He blows up both, which I don't even understand. I think he was in the middle of trading when he realized he needed more wood, went back to the Dark Oak. Luckily for Kuriway, there was a good amount of ocean travel, so all the advantage that Zidori could have gotten with the horse, it kind of goes to the wayside. Nothing really happens. It's an incredibly far stronghold, though. The coordinates to this thing are 800, 2400, which is crazy. That is from the starting village. And you guys won't believe it, Kuriway, while he's digging down at 4-4, he the staircase generated inside a ravine, so there's technically no floor under the staircase. So he falls right to the middle of the spiral, into the ring below, and he can't water energy. He fails, and he dies, and suddenly, Zidori is, a good 5-6 minutes ahead, considering that this stronghold is literally 2,500 blocks away from 0-0. just insane. Zadori like misses the initial dig, but it's really not that crazy. And 1.16 starts. This 1.16 seed was really sick. It was basically FSG. I mean, there was a ruling portal into a Fashion, and the two 1.7 runners, Xylonox and Temp, basically route the 1.16 seed very well. Xylonox I spies and Temp doesn't, so Xylonox's team did eventually catch up a little bit, and finishes out with like a really scary 4-bet axe, barely killing the Ender Dragon. And in 1.7, this is either no, it's not the third. It's at the very least it was a second decision by Illumina to do second day Nether, and incredibly he has like 17 pearls, sub 16 at the tower. Meanwhile, Haru has 14 pearls at around 18 minutes in his own run. But actually, Haru's in the lead because of the fact that they did first day Nether. And let's be honest, I think we all know that Illumina is capable of doing first day Nether. Like, unpracticed or not, he probably could have at least accomplished something. I remember in the actual run, he spent quite a bit of time, preparing all the tower supplies, getting a ton of food. But I think you gotta at the very least get maybe half or a little more than half of your odds. I mean, considering that the rates are slightly increased already, sacrificing nighttime is not too bad. And also with OBT, like, you can get pearls in like 4 minutes, and night is around 7 to 8 minutes. So like second day Nether is not really the best decision anymore, despite it being quote unquote safe. Anyway, Illumina ends up pulling ahead of Haru somehow during triangulation or something, and probably would have entered the end first, but needed one thing, and that is string. And yeah, we've seen this before, not in Relay, but in a failed world record attempt by Illumina a very long time ago, where he would have gotten the world record, but he needed string. And yeah, deja vu, I will say, coming back to bite him. And it's a really close end fight to close out the match, and it comes down to like the very last seconds. This is even closer of an end fight compared to what we just covered with the hot tourist and the juice. And Haru, with a stroke of luck, finishes first, and yeah, the Team Korea takes home the W. I mean, both dragons were like both at half health at the same time at one point, so it was literally just down to like charge RNG and how well you could set off your beds. And it was just insane, just down to the wire for this game. The Tri-County Titanium Mothman are eliminated. Yeah, this is just insane. Now we have our last game for today. Team Ireland winning over Team Spanish. Another upset. This round so far, I mean, I don't know what to say. Like every single good team is choking. I don't really know what to say. I mean, starting in 1.14, there was 11 Abi in the blacksmith. I guess to counteract the fact that both earners couldn't even find lava. And look, who plays 1.14 for Team Ireland, does all the explosions on the first day, which I can't stress how like bad of a play that is. Not that it's like terrible, but it's just not a good play, because if you're not going to do first day trading, there's no reason for you to do the explosions on the first day. Like that, like when you do explosions, that's when you do them during the downtime between the start of the start of the day and the start of the workday for the villagers. That's when you do your explosions. And if you do your explosions another time, you're still going to have to wait for that downtime. And yeah, like Sergi just pulls ahead in really great pace, starting trading at minimum time, getting a good leave. Look, only gets like 8 pearls from the wood because of bad teensy placement, so it didn't even help in the end. Also did the full glowstone trade. Man, this hurts, and has to end up going for like the wheat trade. Sergi gets a really great time with like a low 25-minute run. Although Luke was really not that far behind, as it turned out, because they made up a whole lot of time on Stronghold Nav. And starting 1.16, both runners were not very close, but close enough where anything could happen, right? especially once you go into 1.7 if you continue this lead. Both runners, very good pace. And they're forced to use the home portal as normal. Not enough obby for 2 portals, which is very common, I feel like. I think at this point, runners need to stop expecting that they can use a second portal, because it's just not going to happen. And if you always carry that in your head, you're going to, when you inevitably get 10 obby, it's going to be a little bit of adversity, as opposed to if you are expected, you getting the 20 obby is a gift. It's just a different perspective, basically. But yeah, Santa finishes at like 15 minutes. Good run following Sergi's good run. Team Spanish putting themselves in position to win the game. And yeah, Team Ireland falls right behind as Corbo ice spies into the portal room at like sub 13, but dies to the dragon. Even though he has a quick recovery, the final time is like around 20 minutes or so. And so Team Spanish going into 1.7 has a considerable lead. Both runners have a decent time, but they both die to the nether. And, the towers, basically nothing really to point out there. Although Pato, upon going into the stronghold, realizes that, Pato needs string. Yeah, and that loses like 4 minutes, which is crazy because in that 4 minutes, Kai from Team Ireland was able to catch up and enters the end sub 25, and Pato enters sub 31. Now, in the actual match, it was closer than it sounds, like 25 and 31. But that's because Pato was able to start his run before Kai, and crazy enough, the end fights are incredibly close. Closer than the Tri-County Titanium Mothman versus Team Korea end fight. Closer than the Hot Tours versus the Juice end fight. So close that they finish like 5 seconds apart. And this was the first retime of Relay 2. And like after 15 minutes of like organizer deliberation, I don't even know. Team Ireland takes the W over Team Spanish. Another crazy upset. And yeah, it's kind of crazy considering that Team Spanish probably had the cleaner play overall. I mean, Sergi had a great run. Who was his name? Santa had a great run. Yeah, but it just turns out 1.7 is such a wild card. Kai getting their best time in Relay 2 so far, getting like 27 minutes or something. First sub 30 of the tournament for them. And normally Kai has not played very well by any means, getting like over 40 minutes both previous games. But actually clutching up this time to secure the W for Team Ireland. That is absolutely monumental. Team Ireland moves on and Team Spanish is eliminated. And yeah, that is pretty much all for these games so far. I am very much liking round 3 because no one can predict anything. Like, not even close. We've had, 5 or 4? No, yeah, 5 upsets by seeding, which is just unimaginable. And there's more to come. The next episode should be out soon, but yeah, see you guys next time.